arriving here and now. Maybe allowing the eyes to gently close if that is safe and available to you. And settling in the breath and allowing the breath to settle. Welcoming your whole self, the body, the mind, the heart, the spirit, the wholeness of you to arrive fully present in this moment. And if there are any scattered energies, pieces or parts that have been dispersed in the past or the future, in different places or with different people, calling back any and all energies that are uniquely yours, now as though your heart is a magnet, and all these gems and diamonds of light are zooming back to you, to your core, traveling through a filter such that they are cleansed of any energies that are not uniquely yours. And with each inhale, welcoming these energies back like a homecoming. You're coming home to your heart. And sealing them in with a few breaths. And as we are here together, inviting the sound of the singing bowl to welcome us into this space. And gently opening the eyes if they're not open already. And welcome everyone to Spiraling Within. I am Pei-Ling Lee, and here we spiral within the present moment together. And I'm so happy, so thrilled to be welcoming our wonderful guest today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Linda Gray, and I'm just so happy to be here with you. I felt this is a place where I can really be me, which can be a little bit out there. But as my eyes were closed, I felt all these lovely beings come in, and some of them were clamoring to get a front row seat to see us, to see you and I doing this together. I'm like, okay, little angels, you're going to wait.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
They were so happy. Anyway. But to be a little more grounded than that, I live in Oakland. I've been a seeker from age 2. Then I became a finder. And then these days I'm an explorer of what it means to be alive on Earth, in a body, particularly in a body. When I was 2, I read a children's Bible and it said, you can only go to heaven when you die. Bad deal.
Oh, you froze there a little moment. Let's see. Hello? You still there?
Yeah, we froze for a second, so I'm not sure where I got cut off.
We did. That's honestly, it feels very fitting of just all of the divine being here with us, like making their presence known. We are so accompanied in the multidimensional, angelic, etheric realms. The part that I heard up to was, well, I love what you said about seeker, finder, explorer. That was beautiful. When you were 2 years old, the Bible, and then heaven, you only go to heaven when you die. That's when it stopped.
And I thought that was a bad deal. That's just not a good deal. Little human. Okay, what's this lifetime about? You have to wait. Die before you can experience heaven. So I began studying. I could read by the time I was 2, and worked my way through the libraries of, junior school, high school, university, and sought enlightenment. And when I read Lady Chatterley's Lover when I was 14, I wanted a sex life like that full, the waves. She rode these incredible waves. I was like, I want that. And it seemed to me, if I looked around myself at the time, because I grew up in Zimbabwe, very patriarchal, backwards mentality, that my destination was to get married when I was pretty much 18, 19, have 2 kids by 22, and be divorced by whenever, 30s, 40s. And in where I grew up, you could only really rightly have sex when you were married. And so it looked like I could have this short sex life while I was married, then get divorced. And I wanted to guarantee something that wasn't just, I wanted to guarantee a good sex life until I died. And so those are my 2 quests: a good, gratifying sex life all through life, and enlightenment. I didn't want to be Mr. Miyagi. I didn't want to necessarily go sit on the mountaintops. But wax on, wax off was fine with me. The training, being an apprentice, that looked fun to me. I love those movies. But so I'm exploring, and I think you are too, embodied enlightenment. And for me, that includes a good sex life. So that's where my journey.
Ditto. Well, it's interesting that Lady
Chatterley's Lover.
Lady Chatterley's Lover. So I've heard of that book from my mom, who is also named Linda, as being this book that she, in her youth, that was an eye-opening catalytic book. So it's amazing how those types of transmissions do have a ripple effect in different historical, socio-political contexts and stuff throughout history.
Right. It was written by D.H. Lawrence, for anyone who wants to look it up. It's a very sort of dry book for the most part, but the love scenes are worth it because she surrendered, and it's just very beautiful.
Yeah. And so we connected at just a couple weeks ago at the wonderful Esalen Institute over in Big Sur on the California coast. And we both were there for a wonderful week-long workshop called Source to Screen. And you were the first person that I met in that experience. Within the first 5 minutes, there you were coming up next to me by the bulletin board. And within another 5 minutes, you'd asked me to perform and sing a song on the piano.
Why not?
Yeah, and then you'd also played me one of your songs that you'd written as well, and you sung, and it was just such a divinely aligned encounter. And the fact that we got to open that week together, and then you mentioned that you had taken a lift down, and so it became very clear to me that I was going to offer you a ride back, and so we got to begin and end this journey together. And how grateful that it was just perfect. It was just words can't even describe the synchronicity and the alignment of our reconnecting in that.
It was very profound for me, because in some ways you are me when I was 25, just on fire with, for me, the wording I used is I wanted to save the world. The wording I particularly used as part of the spiritual group I was part of was to return the earth to its pre-fallen state, back to the Garden of Eden, which is lofty, and it took me so far. But I was looking for spiritual lit up playmates, at this point. going to those multidimensional places, because it's kind of tricky to talk to people if they don't. And I want things to be grounded through my body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's definitely especially for me is it's not everyone that I've encountered that I can talk about like cosmic sex with.
Right.
Even that, like the fact that we had these alignments of, oh, you've frozen too. I'm wondering, are you still there?
Just wait.
Did I freeze for you?
Yeah. Did I freeze for you?
You did. We were just so accompanied. We were so accompanied.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I know you can edit this, so we'll work it out. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, it was right when you said something playmate. You said playmate, and then the playmates made themselves known.
They all came in.
They all came in, and they were like, "We're here too."
I think I'm quite a strong introvert, and so I do a lot of my work on my own, and I'm gratified by that. I have many hours in my room in my office. But we're herd animals. We're not meant to do this alone in any way. But I felt like I'd climbed so many mountains in my life. I began my little quest at age 2, and I'd climbed so many mountains and achieved enlightenment and achieved this incredible sensual life, that what was next? Where was my next mountain? And in meeting you, it was like in some ways I feel like my spirit was sort of, I think it might be time to go. You really have done it. For you, personally, you've done it. But I just needed some other reality from those other dimensions that would say, stay. No, stay. There's so much to do and enjoy and be together. And so I feel like that the Esalen workshop was the launching of the next part of my life. The elder part, in a way, maybe the teaching. Because, I've climbed so many mountains, maybe I can share the views. At least for some younger women, or even older women who don't know that they can have a gratifying sex life in their 50s, 60s, all the way to death. And death is just another beautiful journey, a passage. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that was a beautiful... It was like we came together to support each other in a very similar place. Like we were both... Because in the days and weeks leading up to going to Esalen, and my soul was in that similar place. I don't know if I would call it my soul, but I was very much hanging out with those energies of being done. Like I was I've completed all that I'm here to do, and really my system was almost like in a checks and balances way of you're like, okay, well, I'm here to do this and this and this and this. And because I'm experiencing all of this in a very quantum just way of everything has already happened, and everything that is going to happen has been done, and it's already created, and so there's nothing to do. So it's like on my to-do list, or even my to-be list, like all the things that I was here to experience, I was like, my soul was like, okay, yeah, I've done it all. I've experienced it all, and all my service here is done. I'm ready to just like, where's the dotted line where I could just like sign off and like check out, because clearly I'm just complete. Like the world we're good, and those can be some very compelling energies. They can be very compelling when they're present in awareness, and some might hear that and it sparks the potential of fear in encountering, like there can be fear in encountering those. Like some may call that suicidal ideation. of like, just desiring or longing for the end of human life. And really, it's such a, I don't know if common is a word, but I feel like it's such like a component or aspect of this experience is the hanging out with the different aspects of death and what mortality entails, and especially with the remembrance that this is not the beginning or the end, and human life and experience is just one aspect and one expression of everything. It's like, okay, I'm not in that state of enlightenment, which to me really is just the embodiment and remembrance that we're just light. We are just energy. There's not an attachment to life, nor is there an attachment to death.
Right. It's just one continuation. I just see it as one continuation. And and I wanted to find the joy of the body. Okay, so God made me, or God, or source, or life made me, and I don't think life made a mistake. Although at times I remember when I was young and I was like, I do not want the body. I really don't. It's just a drag. Maybe I could just live on air. That'd be good. Because food, I had trouble with food and got very thin. And in some ways, I think as a teenager, I almost tried to see if I could somehow live without food. I could still be alive and not, but that's not how it works.
Yeah.
So I had to. So when I met the community that I'm part of now, they gave me the tools to be in a body. They had me write the good, the bad, and the ugly, because there's all parts of ourselves that we don't think we want other people to see. But if you're in a safe enough place where you can let that out and still be seen and loved, then you can grow, let go. That's what I mean. This is a group thing. We do it together. So I had many, many years of sort of, you could say, tough love in my sensual training. But I was a fighter. Hang in there. I want all the goodies. I want all the way through, all the way home is what I was looking for. And then,
And I'm so glad that you brought up food too, because that's another interesting kind of parallel but difference in how our systems register. In some ways, it's like a resistance to being in a body. It's this longing to just be purely all the time, and this experience of that as being separate. The idea that the energetic is separate from the physical, even that in and of itself is illusion. But for your system, it's like, okay, this avoidance or not wanting food. Whereas for my system, it's like this numbing or overeating. It's like binge consuming behaviors of, let me just like eat all this food, and kind of like an anchor. It's like creating an anchor for my body. It's like, okay, yeah, but we're here now. And also this, foods that aren't even nourishing for my body. There's an element of like self-harm or sabotage in that as well. Like, let me just eat myself closer to the grave. Like in a very, in a very morbid way. But that's all happening on these like unconscious levels. And then even if I remove and step back from any and all of those stories of what is actually happening when we relate or have different food behaviors or just behaviors in general, even food is just energy. And even that is really aligned. Like, it's simply just like anything else, a tool that has an energetic resonance and frequency, whether or not we have a story of eating this much food is bad or not eating food good or bad or regardless of all of that. Because we are God. We are the divine. We are the life and the source and the light that is all. Everything that we do or don't ingest, do or don't think or feel is all happening, in my experience, for me. It's all happening for me and in service to everything. And that was the amazing thing about meeting you, because there I was coming on through these like pretty intense days of just hanging out with these energies, trusting that I was because even as these energies were present of like, oh, I'm done, I just want to be done with this existence. Even as they were present, I was simultaneously aware that they were there for me. Like, I was simultaneously aware that there was a service component to that. Because even for my first 20 years, where I feel like that was my boot camp in human suffering, like, this is what it's like to live suffering and separation and isolation within my body and live from fear. Like, all of that was so that I could speak and serve from an experiential point of view in my, later times. And so hanging out with these end of life energies, then within I think our first long conversation, turns out you were experiencing similar things. It was like this light bulb went off, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is why, like, we get to just support each other through this.
Right, because it's not, you can't talk to most people and say, I think I'm done with this life.
Yeah.
But I'm done with this life because it's been so good. It's been so beyond amazing. And I access the other side at will. It's all available. And it was just, somehow you and I meeting each other was just like this alignment happened for me. And then I'd love to share a gift you gave to me, because I hadn't been sleeping. And that's when if I experienced suffering, it was in the dark, not able to sleep. So I'd look at the clock, it's 3 a.m. I would just be, oh no, tomorrow is now going to be dull at best, because I won't have enough serotonin in my brain. I've studied all brain chemistry. And then you said, well, why you can just shine your light. You're in the dark, so that you can shine your light. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. I can do something with these dark hours. And the next night, I woke up at 3 a.m. and just meditated and like just shone the light in the dark. And I was calm. I didn't have any suffering. Didn't sleep for like 5 nights, but I meditated from one day 2 a.m. to 8 a.m. and I wasn't tired. And I felt like I'd come through handling food and then now handling sleep. Just gave me a freedom to be in my body so that I can speak on this plane of things. And that's just where I'm at now, is I feel like I've got a level of peace I've never had, access to meditation, and I'm the weight that I want to be. I feel fit. But you popped me through the sleep thing. And I think that's what we do with each other. We can just be a little light, a little signpost, a little light. Hey, I'm just going to shine a little light here, and you'll be able to see your way a little better. And for me, it popped me through, Yeah. So I've had many teachers who've been these big beacons of light for me along the way. So,
and that, I think the anticipatory mind of this behavior is happening now, and then anticipating future consequences to what is happening now. Like, that's such a relatable thing. And that was also a shift for me with sleep too, because I think one of the nights, on the first night I woke up at 4 a.m. and on the last night I went to sleep at 4 a.m. And has historically been atypical for me. Like, I haven't been stay up late or and getting to discover that all of those beliefs about, oh, I need a certain number of hours of sleep in order to have an energized day, and getting to discover, like, oh, that's actually not necessarily true. Like, even what you're saying, like, oh, we froze.
Uh-oh.
I think we're back.
We're back.
We're back.
Good, yeah, I can see you okay. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Where did I last say?
Let's see. Sleep. We don't need as much sleep as we think we do.
Yeah, we don't need as much sleep as the mind might think that we do in order to have... Because really the mind just wants us to have an energized, wonderful day, which that's a wonderful thing. And then getting to actually discover, oh, I because I am inherently plugged into source, which is the source of all energy, we can continue to refuel and energize ourselves throughout the day. And we have tools where we can do that, like meditation is one of those tools. And also, I think the other thing that's interesting about sleep is, you know how people who, you know, as humans age, there's less sleep that happens. And I'm curious what your kind of experience or insight around that is. But when I tune into that, there's almost this like getting closer to just existing as light instead of existing in body. There's this gradual detachment to the body or bodily existence. And so as we're moving and, you know, older people typically eat far less too. There's like this lessening of food, lessening of sleep, lessening of these physical body fuel sources. And of course, like a lessening of the physical body's ability as well. But that kind of makes total sense to me, that it's just like, oh yeah, you're just shifting.
It's a gradual unattachment. I mean, I have to use readers for reading. And so when I'm doing my yoga and I look at my hands, they're just ever so slightly blurred. And it's like, I wonder why I can't see my hand, you know, what's the reason for that? It's just like you just don't quite see as clearly. I see fine. I can see fine distance. No problem. But one of my friends in the house is losing his hearing. And I can't really tell him jokes anymore because he loses the nuance. You know what I mean? It's so I just have to be very clear with him.
Because when I feel like with all of those things, my perspective on it is that they're all invitations for us to connect with our inner senses. This detachment from physical sensory abilities is just a doorway or a window into the inner sensory abilities.
Right.
Or it can be. Like that's, you know, many people have different relationships with, you know, that idea of losing sight or losing your hearing. But what if you're not actually losing something? You're just transitioning or shifting into another experience within the body.
It's like an inner hearing or an inner seeing. I think that's a lovely, you should almost have a poster on your wall, you know, remind you, you know, go in, access the inner senses that are vital and clear seeing and, you know,
absolutely.
I think that's good. It's good. Yeah.
Because you mentioned it a couple times, your sensual training. Would you speak to your sensual training and share with those, because I've gotten to hear about it, but I'm sure there are those who might be curious.
What is my sensual training? Let's see, I'll begin at the beginning because that's where I have to. I was living with my boyfriend in Vancouver, Canada, and he went to a party without me, but I was kind of run down and almost having a nervous breakdown. I didn't know it. I was 28.
This is, okay, you're 28, you've left.
28.
You left Zimbabwe.
I left Africa.
Yeah.
I left when I was 18, and I went to Canada. So I've been in Canada since from 18 to 28, and I was living in Vancouver with my boyfriend, and I was in graduate school, and pretty run down, not used to all the rain and the cold, the Canadian cold. And he went to a party without me, which somewhat surprised me, but he had a friend, Deborah, and he came back and he said that he'd met this couple and they wanted to go for a hot tub. And she was English, she's English, and this was Canada, which was very conservative. And I was like, you don't go meet someone for the first time and then get naked. So I'm like, I think I like these people. This is just natural. You know, just feeling good about our bodies. So we met for a hot tub, and David just began talking about a community called Morehouse. And they're based in Lafayette here in California, and there's a Morehouse in Hawaii and Atlanta. Though there have been many more in the past. And he asked me things like, you know, Linda, what do you want? And I was like, no one's ever asked me, just asked me what I want. I was on my success agenda to get good grades, get A's, get a PhD, find my enlightenment. But, you know, maybe I wanted a cup of tea and he made me do a want list. And I wanted a kitten, but I traveled a lot, so there was no way I could have a kitten. So I said, I'm not going to put a kitten on my want list because, you know, impractical. And he said, no, put it on. And he gave me permission to just express my wants. And so I liked that. And then his wife, Deborah, started talking about an ESP. And I thought, well, that sounds cool, a course called an ESP. And I thought, oh, that's cool, that's extrasensory perception. And so I was intrigued. And then it turned out to be an expansion of sexual potential, is what it stood for.
We've frozen again. Okay, we froze.
Yep, we froze.
This is a very special episode. This is unprecedented in this speaks to the vibration of the frequency that there's stuff happening.
Grounding.
Yes, it's like even in the silence, there's transmission happening through this. But so the last thing I heard you say was you thought it was extrasensory perception, but it was really expanded sexual potential.
Yeah, expansion of sexual potential, right. And I thought that was intriguing. It was a course where you learned to feel more when you were coming, manual stimulation. And then she talked about women being an orgasm for an hour. And I thought, I'm going to be a student the rest of my life, so why not study sensuality? Here's a place, it was actually called Moore University at the time, that taught me this kind of stuff. And I moved into their communal house. We all moved to San Diego. Then we all moved back up to Oakland, all living communally. So I was introduced to living with people, and I liked that. My family are in Africa. I didn't have any family in America, so they became my family, and I began their essential. Where to begin? So the founder is Vic Barranco and his wife Susie, and they were in the '60s, and he did everything to achieve the American dream. Got the house, the car, the two kids, the cat, the dog, the nice car, made $1 million. And then Susie kind of looked at him, and they looked at each other, and they were like, well, is this it? We've achieved the American dream, and there must be more to life. And so they essentially founded Morehouse, or Moore University. What is the more to life? And I always wanted to know, there must be more to life than this. Getting married at 18, having 2.2 children. So he created that just by doing his own explorations, and then people gathered around him. He didn't have any intention to be a guru or a teacher, really, but he was a genius and 300-pound boxer, and he was charismatic, carried a clout, wherever he went, and he flashed to his own enlightenment, and then began to tell people, and they would flash to enlightenment. They would get it, and then they would forget. And he'd say, well, why don't we just create a little symbol that you can wear around your neck? And when you see it, you'll remember that you're perfect. His flash was to his own perfection. And
when you say flash, what do you mean by flash?
His flash to enlightenment was that he grasped that he is 100% responsible for everything. So one night he thought, I've problems. I'm going to track down the source of all my problems. And he just lay down, and one by one, he said, if I could find the answer to my smallest problem, maybe that would give me a clue or tune me in as to how to solve my biggest problems. And he just worked his way through his problems, and he realized that he was the source of all his problems. Therefore, he was the solution. And it was just this freedom. If I'm 100% responsible.
So when you say flash, that you mean realization. Realization.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
This is probably more 60s languaging, flashing to enlightenment. And then he gathered a group of people around them, and Susie. So Susie wanted a more fun sex life, more of a sex life. But in the 60s, there was nothing around. Masters and Johnson were doing their experiments with wires and counting contractions, and they did amazing work.
And that's the show Masters of Sex, which I haven't seen.
Masters of Sex. Yeah. That captures quite a bit of it. I think it's accurate to a point. I can't speak to its accuracy, but it certainly conveys a lot of what they were exploring, the difficulties they ran into. So Vic met Masters and actually worked with his daughter. And they began their own experiments at Moore University, as it was called then, and put the electrodes on the women and began counting contractions. But when they reached 200 contractions, all the electrodes, the devices got in the way. And so they realized that orgasm wasn't just as, 7 to 9 or 9 to 14 contractions. Women would go into these orgasmic states and ride these waves and have hundreds, thousands of contractions. So then they began
of what? Of what's contraction? Contracting.
Vaginal and in the uterus, clitoral, the whole.
Gotcha.
Down there.
So it's like muscular contractions. That's what they were measuring.
That are measurable. Yes, exactly. They were measurable. So then they began to measure in terms of intensity and duration. So if I'll just use a man and a woman just for ease. So if a man was rubbing a woman's clitoris with a finger, he could feel her sensual response. And the people who are the other teachers, the other people who were experimenting with this, they realized that they could actually feel each other. And they began to measure orgasm in terms of intensity and duration.
You mean feel?
Physically.
Was there an element of, at this point, the energetics of it yet?
Well, I think that's what they were realizing. Toward the end of my sensual training, we didn't use the word orgasm at all. We just used energy. And the line was, it's all energy. And so they just realized that, if Lafayette Morehouse puts on demonstrations of a woman in orgasm for an hour at their studio, not at the moment because of COVID, but we can post a link with this podcast so that if people want to see a woman in orgasm for an hour. And during those demonstrations, you can go up to the front and put your hand on a woman's thigh, and you can just feel the heat and the energy. It's palpable. So that was part of my training, was going to a demonstration and seeing a woman in orgasm for an hour, and then beginning the training myself. So that was intense and fun. I became an apprentice I became like an apprentice to orgasm. We started as a beginner, and like, how do these women feel this? I could tell the women. You could just feel it from them and see it that they were coming, and it was so beautiful. Being able to witness another woman in orgasm was a privilege. And you learn so much, and you realize, and at one point, I sort of said to the teachers, I am loving my training, but basically what I was saying is, I'll never do what you do. And one of my teachers, one of the quiet, sweet teachers, she stood up, and she said, we are exactly the same. Anything I can do, you can do. And I was like, okay. And that's when I began to allow myself to experience greater intensity and duration of orgasm, of riding those waves, which is what the training is about, learning how to ride the waves.
And that really is, it's allowing yourself to go there.
Yeah. You have to feel worthy. If you don't feel worthy, if you feel like you're somehow, bad somewhere deep down that no one can see, but you're not going to let yourself have those experiences. So they create...
safe.
Safety. Well, they make it over the top safe. So that was handled for me. But there's communication exercises that you can do where you can release some of that old, probably today we'd say trauma, but they don't particularly, just history, old charge that your system carries. There's ways to release that, and you do many, many hours of that, and keeping a journal, writing, and then watching how you be in the world. But by a weekly session, just how did I be in the world between my sessions? Could I be kinder, more courteous? Could I help out? Could I just learn to be a nicer human being? And just that training was helpful for me, and allowed me to experience greater levels of orgasmic intensity.
Yeah, and it's quite profound that you got to be held in that journey in community. Because my experience has been, just in general, like a rocket launch of remembrance in a very short period of time. And like primarily just solo, primarily like with myself, that I've all of these different aspects have like turned online, and getting to like be witness in that and in partnership as well. But
mostly on your own. I know, I was quizzing you. It was like, how did you got like you got the speed version, the express. We're just going to get it all in a year or 2 or 3, and then we're good. I spread mine out over quite a bit more time. Yeah, I
really did. I got express because it was, I would say, oh my gosh, I remember, because in the body that I've gotten to be in, it was carrying a lot of that charge, a lot of that trauma that was not mine directly experienced, but it was connected to, just that cellular epigenetic memory of all of the collective wounding ancestrally and collectively. And so I had a lot of stuff to kind of move through. And for me, partnership, like, was very catalytic in that. Like, it was this great reflection and mirror of how much stuff I was carrying and just like the inhibitions and the blockages that I felt. And like, why is intimacy with another? Because I was super comfortable with myself. And then, but then you bring in the element of like, for me, a penis, and then it's like, oh, it was like, and for me, it was literally within my programming, there was a registering of the masculine as being just dangerous, a threat. And so even though I was super comfortable receiving and being touched, the prospect of like being an engaged participant was it just wasn't available. It was because there's so much programming around and wounding around the masculine that was. I love what you shared about Vic and the 100% responsibility, because that's absolutely it. It's like, it's not about what it's not about the man or the person that I'm with. It's the masculine and my relationship to the like divine archetypal masculine within me and all of that within myself. And, but I was so grateful that because in current, I guess I don't know about current human timelines, but at least the human timeline that I was projecting onto my life is the timing of when things should unfold for a being. I was 22. It was a month before I graduated college that I had my first kiss, and I really had to like, in some ways, force myself to like get to that point. This was only 2019, and here we are, just 3 years. It was 3 years later, and because there was this quote unquote delay in my experience of relating in intimacy with another, I had lots of time and space to just do that exploration within myself. But even that, it was only a year prior to that I was brave enough to get a vibrator. I so distinctly remember I was actually in London, and I looked up, I found there was this sex shop that was like a women only sex shop. I was like, what is the safest, most non-sexual way of me like attaining? It was just, I felt there was just so much shame and so much hiding. But then that was a game changer, and it really felt so freeing to begin to. It's kind of like my sexuality was always something hidden even from me, like, because I was so afraid of it. I was deeply afraid of being seen as experienced as a sexual being, because I was like, that power is too bright, and if I shine, then I'm going to be targeted and attacked and killed, and it's safe. Like, that's essentially the like bottom line of the programming. It's, if I'm seen as a sexual being, a radiant being in the world, then that is that beacon of light. That is that power that, like you're describing, of a hand on a woman's thigh when she's coming. It's like the literal heat and power and magnetism of that. And I always had this like innate recognition that was within me, but the fear, it's like this, it's dangerous to experience that, because it is literally dangerous to experience that in a feminine form in the world and all those things. So then it first really required me cultivating a sense of inner safety within my body. And that's been like the journey over the years of, as I've connected with, oh yeah, I am inherently safe no matter what, and those programs are outdated and they're actually not pertinent to my direct experience now, and I can choose to deactivate and deprogram those. Yeah, but so it's cool.
It's very freeing,
Oh yes.
Right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Was
and
that any of this?
Deep work?
It really is. It really is. What were some of the things that were coming up for you to kind of be with as you were on that journey of like going from seeing,
well, I
like,
had very
spark being like, yeah, go ahead.
I had similar experience of fear as you, and even from being born in the 60s, just even in earlier generations where women were even less free. I had I'm not sure what swear words you can say on YouTube. We can bleep them out if we need to. But,
go for it.
but growing up, I didn't swear. We didn't swear. It wasn't culturally.
Oh, me neither. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I went to high school and I came back and I learned the word crap. And I was talking to my mum and I went, "That's crap." And she's like, "Linda, no, you don't need to. It's lazy to. There are other words." And she gave me other words I could use. They were really fantastic. And so I just didn't swear. And then I got to America and I met this community of people, and everyone's, there's different characters and groups, but I was in San Diego and this fellow was from New York, and I was being my quiet, sweet self, thinking, keep the light down, I'm just quiet and sweet, I'm not doing any harm. And he said, "Linda, you have to find your fuck you." And I'm like, I do. And for me, my journey took just being a little more gutsy, and I couldn't even say the F word. I couldn't even say it.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny this is coming up. That was it was the summer before my senior year of college, so 2018. It was just a couple months after I'd gotten my vibrator. It was like, there was a similar kind of wave that was unfolding. But I had a little vocal inhibition to saying fuck. Like it was, I couldn't, there was a block. Yeah, I couldn't, it wasn't coming out of my mouth because I had such an association of it being bad, or even my identity was wrapped up in, oh, I don't swear because it's like I am, and that comes down to the fundamental program is I need to be good. Like I am good, or I need to be good. And so I had a very intentional summer where I was like, you know what? I am done with this, like this arbitrary box that I'm drawing myself. And it was the summer of saying fuck. There was no actual fucking, but it was like the summer of saying it. It was the summer saying it. We can at least say it now.
That's great. There's other words to describe, making love or whatever. But that was just part of my evolution to break out of my boxes. And then in one of my sessions about a year into my advanced training, the orgasmic waves were so big, they began to feel like, if you see tsunami coming in, I get terrified if I see huge, big sea waves. And so when I talked to one of the sweetest teachers, he sort of looked a bit like Merlin, white beard, these twinkling blue eyes. And I said, Joe, the waves are scaring me now. The waves are scaring me now. And he looked at me and he twinkled at me and he said, "Linda, you do know that all the waves just break onto the shore." And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. I'm not going to drown.
Yeah.
And especially when you're, essentially you're in a bed, you're safe, you're lying down, nothing bad's going to happen. But I had to get safety in my own head. You know what I mean? If you're scared in a bed, nothing bad's happening, except in my mind. And so he just had me calm down. And then shortly after that, the expression used in my sessions, it was riding giants. I was now riding those big waves, and they still blow me away today. Sometimes I'll have a wonderful make-out due date. I can go into the terminology, but I'll say to my partner, "I can't believe it was so different. It was so good, and it was so different." And then I realized that there are as many connections in our brains as there are more than billions of connections. And so the potential for pleasure is infinite. And that's a wonderful thing to know and be able to tap
Absolutely.
into. Yeah.
And will you define what's make out and what's due date in the context of your training or your community?
Let's see. I'll say how I was introduced to a couple that introduced me to Morehouse, talked about due dates. And a Morehouse due, I don't hear that expression much these days, but I'll just describe what I learned, was a man stimulating a woman's clitoris for like 15 minutes for a set period of time. So they would get comfortable, and we're masters of pillows and comfort. And then he would take her up into a state of orgasm, just take on a ride wherever she was willing and wanted to go, for maybe say 12 minutes, and then 3 minutes would bring her down with like heavy pressure, and then use a towel. You'd start putting lubricant on, and at the end wipe lubricant off with the towel. And it was just a 15-minute cycle that almost could have as much emotional charge as going to play a good game of tennis. You didn't have to be in love with the person. You would just have this agreement that you're going to have a due date, and you were both trained to whatever degree you were to how to do this. So if your partner was a good tennis player or a good doer, then you'd have a good time. And the more that I could feel...
Oh, like doing, not D-U-E.
Oh, yeah, D-O, doing.
Oh, D-O.
Not doing. That's cute. Yeah, no dues. No paying it, no. Doing, D-O-I-N-G. So I use the term doing myself rather than masturbating, because masturbation to me sounds like interrogation. It has all the other negative gation words to me, but doing myself sounds fun, and doing someone else or being done. And so I really like Morehouse's terminology. It just releases some of that old stigma, I think, from pleasuring yourself and being pleasured by others.
Yeah, it's also, it's interesting, the doing. Was there any language of receiving?
Well, the woman is referred to as the comer, C-O-M-E-R, comer with American accent. The comer and the doer. So in the demonstration of a woman in orgasm for an hour, you'd have the comer would be on a table, then there'd be the doer doing her, and then someone would be available for sips of water or give clean towels, and then there was lights and camera and an audience. So I had to, I was trained to come in under lights, camera, audience, and go into these states, and it was a lot for me. But boy, it was the best adventure of my life. And so once I'd done that, that was part of why I'd climbed that mountain. You know, I could come in front of an audience, lights and cameras.
That's really dropping in. Well,
that's what it was.
It's like a real presence.
The only thing that, and because everyone could feel me, I couldn't, there was no lying. You can't go, oh, it was great. They're like, oh, no. So one of the women said to me, Linda, that was pleasant. That was just pleasant. I'm like, I don't want pleasant.
Oh, wow.
I want ecstatic. And so
yeah, what's that like? What's that like, the experience of having other people's experience of your experience? That's kind of what it is. It's like their feedback.
Well, first it blows your mind that people can feel you that way. It's like, how do they know? For sure. But session after session, I got so much reality that they could feel where I was, and more, they could feel the potential where I could go. And they were opening a door. Then if you relax, just melt into the table, just relax. Like you are a right person, you are in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. You'll go higher. And so then I would go. So my words is I would go deeper and higher in sensation. But it took a long time. I was a hardhead. You know, I resisted furiously. My good girl conditioning was deep, and my prejudices of where I grew up, patriarchal, racist, sexist, homophobic. It was hard to get through that I could just go to that. It's a quintessentially raw place where you are only you. And that beauty, you described it beautifully, where you said that power with the heat. I could go into that place with people watching, was the challenge and the glory. Mm-hmm. Because when I would go to those places, I didn't care about the lights, the camera. I'm like, don't care. And then they'd be like, oh, good girl. Then I'd get the praise that I thought I wanted.
Yeah.
Because once I didn't care anymore. And that's really
isn't that
liberating.
amazing when you're like tapped into what I would describe as, it's like infinite goddess energy. Mm-hmm. And I had my partner last year, he described it once as, I mean, just the experience of seeing the like amazement. It's like this infinite unfolding of getting to embody the feminine, or just really embody that energy, whether you're feminine or masculine. Right. Yeah, but that allowing the self to be this direct, uninhibited channel pure energy and like love and divinity and power, and it just like keeps, it's a lotus flower that blossoms and blossoms and blossoms, and it keeps blossoming, and to be witnessed in that is so powerful, as well as to experience it within the self, but then to be witnessed by another in that.
It was life-changing, like continually life-changing.
I'm curious because you describe the infinite forms of pleasure. What is the is tension included in the train? Like, is tension always, like when riding the waves, is there ever this like allowance for or welcoming of tension is just offering a different flavor of what that wave could be like? Because
I'm not sure what you mean by tension, but there's no seduction without resistance.
Yeah, I mean resistance. I guess I mean resistance. It's like rather than there's the melting, right? There's the melting and then the surrendering, where there's like a gradual like and then you just let it keep, and then you think that you're about to break, but then you soften, and then you think you're about to break, and then you soften, and then that you're like suddenly you're riding giants. And then sometimes it's like more of, I don't know, like a scramble. There can be like a scramble type of energy, but the scramble even can be fun. Like sometimes it can be like fun to scramble, and like that's just like a different flavor of pleasure. Like we're all of those different colors included.
Oh, definitely. I think the way they phrased it was, everything you're already doing is right. Keep doing that, but we're just going to show you more. That is more or different. Other flavors. That's all.
I like that.
Whatever you're doing is right. Yeah. Yeah,
because I love that, because it's just it really is. It's an expansion of the color palette.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like suddenly life can be rainbow, and that was going back to what we were talking about of feeling complete in life. I genuinely, because my relationship last year, it ended right at the end of the year, and we actually went into that partnership, and I had very clear intentions right from the beginning, and so did he, that we were both interested in exploring Tantra, and just like, just a very sexually, but like intentional and conscious, and like that type of sexual partnership, as well as, just relating in general. But we were both interested in that. And through that year of getting to evolve and explore and totally expand in my radiance in that realm, like I genuinely afterwards I was like, hey, I'm done. Like I can like I honestly feel complete with, I feel like I've fully manifested and experienced the like divine partnership, the love, the mutual like healing and intimacy and sexual connection that, I've always dreamed of and desired. And so I'm ready to sign off. And then do you know what happens? life continues.
Amazing how that
continues. Life just continues, and turns out it's like it's not the end, and then there's just like different flavors and frequencies, but kind of the okay, I'm enlightened, now what? Or like I've experienced this. And for me, it's been not necessarily this like, yes, there's expansion and evolution, but what this current, like that I'm really on this like brink of transition into and have been transitioning into, it's the even more so this like embodiment of, it's the manifestation and experience of that in a very material, physical realm. And it's kind of like the past 3 years I've been on the hero's journey, this quest of, it literally, I think it was maybe when I was dreaming or something this morning, but it's like I took off into space the past 3 years. It's like I went on this epic adventure of taking off into space, orbiting, discovering the cosmos, discovering all these realms and dimensions that are truly like natural and inherent to me. And then during 2022, it's been this like, okay, now we're reintegrating. I'm like landing again and bringing back all of the things that I've discovered. And I'm in a place where I can like anchor, but also share them, and kind of like what you were talking about of like, you've climbed all your mountains and sharing the view. And it's like we are here in human form, in physical form, to be physical and to be in human physical form. And yeah, so I'm excited to be here and to because I love what you said. You said that for you it feels like you're shifting into the teaching realm, and that's what I felt like I was shifting to at
25, right?
Yeah, at 25, I was like, yeah, I'm shifting into that, and I absolutely did shift into that, and it's more so like an activation that those qualities are inherent to me. It's like, oh yeah, I already am a master of energy. I already am this like here to guide and serve and support. But what I've realized just in the past like 2 days is that actually might not be my material plane work for the next couple decades. That it's actually in something that is actually, what I've realized is actually it's in the fashion industry, which is the very material. It's like literally dealing with the material world. And can I take these things that I've experienced through these orgasmic states and enlightened states, which really it's not a state of being, it's just the entire experience of life, and be like, okay, the material realm is no different from the energetic realm, and integrating and illuminating the material realm with all the starlight that I've remembered and reactivated within myself from this journey. And it makes sense that it's like you're shifting into the teacher realm at 60. Like that's a very common age when people like shift into that chapter, whereas it's like I was ready to shift into that, and then life is like, oh no, you're in a creator. It's like time to be a creator.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And for me, I have my projects where I'm writing a children's story and a screenplay and my music, and what's fueling all my projects is bringing that starlight through in whatever way, whether it's in a children's story, a tiny little teaching, you could do it this way, or you know what I mean, keep an open mind. In my sensual training, keep an open mind was one of my most oft repeated things I was told. What does it mean to keep an open mind? So yeah, Morehouse offers a course called Basic Sensuality, where they lay out their whole philosophy, and it's all clothes on. You do homework by yourself, and it gives you I would call like the handbook that you and I never got when we were 15, and we really could have used it. So I can post a link to some of the names of the courses that you could go get a handbook on. Basic Sensuality includes yourself and how you experience the world through your 5 senses and conceptual thought. Who are you? What do you like? How can you tell a partner what to do if you don't know what you like? So basic sensuality introduces the philosophy, the sensual components, people components. With people, we're herd animals. We like being together. The worst punishment is isolation in prison. That's the worst punishment, is to put someone in isolation. So given that we love to be together, and that is joy to us, but can also be conflict and trauma and difficult, how do we navigate being with each other and experiencing the joy that is, our birthright?
Absolutely. And it's interesting, the isolation thing, it's not even just physical. Like, physical isolation is one thing, but that's the kind of fundamentals of just separation consciousness, of experiencing us as being isolated from source, from divine, from life, or even being in a crowded room and feeling totally alone, or being with someone that, we can sense and feel when people's hearts are closed, or when they're, physically closed. And I think what I've been finding is, as I've been more engaged in the, excited and willing to be in the world, be in the human realm, is that you encounter many different types of people, many different flavors of people who may or may not be in a conscious place of their spiritual journey, because everyone is on a spiritual path, whether they realize it or not, because we're all just spirit and energy. But for, there are times that we come across people who are in just different frequencies. And so what I've been noticing recently is that, my work in the material plane, my spiritual work is, can I stay open? Can my heart stay open? Can I stay shining and radiating that starlight, even if there seems to be chaos or closing around me? And that's what you were saying about the nightmares and the darkness. It's shining the light, and then circling back to what Vic was saying, responsibility, because even the closed parts are not separate from me. Those are just parts of me too, that are just getting to be reflected. And so it's all just getting to be embracing whatever shows up in love.
I wrote down, you said something to me at Esalen. You said, who's doing the doubting? I'm that which I'm cutting out, and the thing that I'm throwing it to. And I don't know, that little metaphor, I'm tired. Oh, something's doing this to me. Oh, I'm gonna throw my fatigue to myself. And then I don't feel so tired anymore. It's that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
So you have these little gems, ways of popping through, our mindset, the closed mindset to the starlight. Yeah.
And that's the gift, though, because when we remember that we aren't just the mindset, it's if I'm encountering someone, it's okay, I see the mindset, but I remember that that's just a part of them. That's just a part, because I know I'm hung out with my mindset a lot, and I remember that it's simply just a part of all of the different facets. Yeah. What is... I remember. There's a question for you, which is not favorite, not in the hierarchical sense, but is there one particular journey of riding a wave that you feel inspired to share? Maybe you rode the wave into the stars or something, or when you have these multi-dimensional or cosmic experiences, maybe they're very earthly. What is a journey?
They're let's see, so many. The one that had me feel amazing in my physical body, because sometimes I'll go out there, was I found myself in Bali, I've never been to Bali, but I imagine Bali would be like, and I was in the ocean and it was warm, and I was an anemone in the sand, and the wave was going over me and making my little tendrils, go with the wave, and then I was the anemone, and then I became the wave, and then I became the whole ocean, and the whole and then I could see the earth from above, and the whole ocean was singing love. It was just singing itself into being through the waves, and I was that, because we can't tell the difference between conceptual and real. Our brain, that's why we can watch movies. There's a scientific way to say that. But having those experiences, it was me. In those moments, I was that. I've had other experiences of watching a star being born out in space, or swimming through the galaxies. One was, I found myself in ancient Babylon. Who knew? And I was with this lovely being, this man, and he was sort of seducing me in this beautiful, fragrant garden, and I was being seduced, and it was lovely. But meanwhile, I'm just having my clitoris rubbed on a bed, but I'm going on these gorgeous journeys, and sometimes it is just physical and feel sexual, turn on in that way. It's a mix. It's just a huge storyboard of places to go and experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Or riding big waves. Yeah, that's.
Do you ever set intention? Like, do you ever? Because there are times where I'm showing up. Not that I'm. Sometimes I'm showing up with an intention. Like it's a space of magic and alchemy. It truly is. There's like, that power is here, especially it being like womb space and the creative, the sacral power literally is a power of creative manifestation. And it is like declaring things like I am powerful, or I'm beautiful, or something like, but also I've tapped into that energy and amplified that energy for very like, more material world,
more practical things, right? Things
more
that you need.
Things. Yeah, exactly. Is that something that Morehouse talks about, or you've experienced?
Morehouse doesn't meticulously talk about that. They don't say you could do that, but good. But they say good comes your way as you put good out, as you feel good. Good just comes to you. So I mean, I was probably 2009 or so when the economy was really 2008. Remember the crash? I needed work, and so I went into this due date with the goal of getting a job. Had a splendid time. Went and checked my email, checked Craigslist, and I got a job. Literally, there was Linda, you've been called for an interview. They literally typed the call for the interview during the day. Yeah. So that was cool. My latest one is I want to feel even more. Now that I've kind of climbed all the mountains and live in this connection is so visceral for me. Like, well, now I want even more. And so
What does that mean to you? Do you have an intuitive sense or an inkling of what is more? What is more for you?
You discovered in the moment. Like, I was having a due date yesterday, and he said it was like it was on one of those 15-minute due dates, and so I knew it was going to be like last peak.
We froze.
Had this incredible, mind-blowing.
We froze.
The video can't stand it.
It was literally. So I heard you had a 15-minute due date, mind-blowing, and that feels totally fitting.
Hilarious.
I have a question of the logistics of a due date. Is it? Do you guys set a 15-minute timer, or do you just have like an inherent awareness of?
For that particular one, he has a clock just sitting on my dresser, and you can just glance up and see it because that's a timed one. But with one of my other partners, we don't have a time limit. We go for as long as it's fun, and that's usually half an hour, maybe 40 minutes. Sometimes if it's an hour, we comment that it was an hour. That's the long one. We comment. Oh wow, we were making out for an hour. Oh, I was coming for an hour. But it's more like half an hour, 40 minutes.
Gotcha. So this one yesterday, 15 minutes, and you were about to say what you were experiencing or going through that.
It cut out.
So all of it came.
I just thought I want more. I didn't have any idea what it is. I want more, and I went into this enormous peak where my whole entire nervous system is enthralled. Rapture. That's the term Morehouse uses, rapture. I go to rapture. And then it probably was maybe a minute, and then we were done, and he brought me down and with pressure, and we went on with our day. It was stunning. So sometimes just thinking that you want more just nudges your nervous system or your brain into going, oh, okay. The brain is quite willing, because we've got there's a phrase from the Bible which I think you probably know well. In my Father's house are many mansions, and that's there's just the many mansions are in consciousness, and there are so many places to go. In Source's house, whatever word you want to use. I quite like that phrase though.
Yeah, one of the really, really powerful threads of this conversation so far is just the what do you want? And that's even something, just yesterday I was doing in a life review workshop, and life reviewing that typically if you've had like a near-death experience, which,
oh, that's cool.
Whether it's a physical near-death experience or otherwise like egoic or just, which I would actually describe that both of us are coming through near-death experiences.
Exactly.
And it's essentially this life review of tuning into like, okay, what does my preconception higher self like desire for me? Like what is my soul here to experience? And what are my I loved this question. What are my non-negotiables to experience or create before I drop my body at the end of this incarnation? Like, what are the non-negotiables of like, I'm not leaving until I do, because we have the power to declare those. And I genuinely feel after we finish this call, I'm going to get out a piece of paper that I'll put on my wall of like my want list, because that's a really powerful thing. I'll do my want list, and then I'll have my own little due date with myself, and then we're just going to create the want list. And it was interesting because recently, in an intimate context, someone asked me was like, what do you want me to do? And I found it was really interesting, because in that moment, what came up was that I just wanted them to enjoy me. And it was like a pleasure in the other person's pleasure, or this like desire for them to be enjoying themselves, which I feel like that's a super common thing. It's like my pleasure being dependent on if they are experiencing pleasure versus, and that was just like an interesting.
I have two thoughts on that. Is your advice was good, because with Morehouse uses a term called the taking touch. So you touch so that it feels good to you.
Yes.
So that was right. He should touch you for his pleasure, but you go for everything you can have. You are the engine, the source, and knowing what you want. And one comment about vibrators is they tend to numb the clitoris. In Morehouse's many years of research. Yeah. So hands good, or at least interchange. You
mean numb over time, or numb in an experience?
Probably both. I would say both.
Interesting. Possibly.
I mean, you can still get off. You can still go over the edge. You can still feel delicious and yummy and exciting, and the vibrations are cool. I've definitely used one. But the thing with your hands is you can do your own taking touch. So what feels good to your hands, and then you can feel how much you engorge, how soft you get, how wet you get. Another word I couldn't say was pussy. I could not say that word. I'm amazed I can even say it now. But you'll just feel the changes that your body makes. That men get harder and women get softer. So you'll feel yourself getting softer and softer, and it feels really good. So you could even have
something that you could start the vibrator of when I first got the vibrator, years ago, and that was something I was afraid of. There was a fear coming up of like, I'm afraid that I will become reliant or dependent on this tool. And so I stopped it, and I was like, okay, let me just use my hands. And I found that, it didn't actually, for me and my experience, like using the vibrator didn't diminish my experience of just hands. Like it didn't become something that I was reliant upon, because
Good.
also the other thing for me is that the vibrator is just an extension of my energy body anyway. Like I don't, like the vibrator to me isn't it's almost like not a separate entity, because nothing is a separate entity.
Right.
And I've had these profound experiences of my energy, my energy is expanding, it is literally mirrored and amplifying the vibrator's vibration, because it's like that electricity current is like, I'm literally charging the vibrator as well.
Right.
And so there's this expansion. But, everyone's relationship, even that idea of, how much sensation and stuff, like I'm sure that there's like validity in what they're experiencing or what they've studied over time. But yeah, I love my vibrator.
Then that's good. Then you get joy. It brings you joy. So that's the ultimate goal. It's all.
I think
you're
going to say something else about the hands. Oh, what you said about taking touch was, because that's what I talked to you about, the wheel of consent, and I love that model of boundaries, because there is a difference between taking and allowing, giving and receiving. Like I can take something because it is for my pleasure, and the other person allows me to take that.
Right. Yes.
But I can also give it because it's for your pleasure. And so that's actually that realm of being a receiver, is what do you want, or what do I want? What do I want to receive that they might be willing to give, even if it's not prioritizing their pleasure? That's kind of it. It's like, even if, because, and there's actually pleasure being a giver, even if it's not, say it's in a context of like massage, even if it might not be my favorite activity to massage a shoulder blade or something, like the willingness to give something because that is exactly what that person desires to receive and what is pleasurable for them.
Yeah, it's a constant exploration of yourself, your partner. Yeah. It's a.
I was curious if mirrors are ever is Morehouse mirrors.
Yes, we do. In the basic sensuality class, I can't give too much away, but you get to look at your body from all angles and appreciate yourself from all angles. Yeah,
that's been some of the most profound experiences I've had, is quote unquote doing myself, but mirrored, like eye contact with myself, and getting to watch myself ride those waves. That's profound.
That's fun.
And it's really, because it takes that element of like being witnessed, but then you just get to witness yourself.
And your own beauty. How beautiful the body, the
Absolutely.
women. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
The other, and I've kind of like talked to you about this before, but the focus for Morehouse is primarily around women and the female orgasm. Is it, or is there training vice versa for like other body parts?
I'm not sure what you mean by other body parts, but
I mean,
men,
men penises.
Right, other body parts. Several of the courses do include men. I mean, there's a course called Advanced Sensuality, where you and a partner learn how to do each other, and so both bodies are very much involved. And there are several other classes where we do it with a partner, and so male anatomy is examined, and you learn about it, and things that you've never known about a penis, you discover, you learn how it works, and how much pressure, to which direction it can go and not go, and enjoying it at all stages of engorgement. You can get pleasure at all stages of engorgement. So definitely.
So there are also due dates, not just for, women. Do men have due dates in Morehouse?
Yeah, the women can do the guys. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So there's this equal opportunity.
There's equal opportunity, but the guys, it turns out, just love doing the women. The guys who love doing women they take so much pleasure in it because they just get into that lovely current and they just hang out there, and that's gorgeous. And then if there's making out to happen after that, more, using his body, that can happen if you're, if you have that agreement. But there's quite a bit of where the men do the women, and not necessarily the women do the men, but it's really up to the couple or what the agreement they have about, having dates with other people.
That's definitely a really special experience, is when somebody enjoys giving pleasure, like enjoys like cultivating that experience of pleasure.
Exactly.
And that is a pleasurable experience. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, so we were riding the waves, we were in Bali, and that was your favorite cosmic
That was one.
experience.
There was so many. It's like, okay, which one? Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead. I interrupted you.
Oh no. I was just listening to what else is present.
When I meditate, like I do Shavasana, I do 45 minutes of yoga, and then I go into Shavasana, and then I just go out. And then I'll see stars being born, and the whole galactic cosmos opens up. And my current one is I'll be lying on the ground, and I just feel Earth under me, and I realize that we're having one of the best rides in the universe. We're on this big blue-green ball that's moving through space, and we're just hanging out on this ride. And then I tune into Earth itself, and she takes such delight in carrying me. She's like so tickled that she can carry me, and that she can carry, that she's having this ride.
Yeah.
And I just tune into, because if you really are where you are now, it includes that. We're on Earth going at 24,000 miles an hour through space, and out there galaxies are being born. This is all apparently true, science says so. But it also happens in consciousness. All that happens in consciousness too. So I have these multi-dimensional rides through the universe that are very fun.
Yeah, same. Ditto.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's what's cool, is that it's like even to just encounter another being, which I've gotten to hear different people's experiences who also have similar, like, we're not the only humans who have experiences like
out there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But a lot of people do it on drugs. They do it on LSD,
yes,
or they do it on psilocybin. You can totally go there, but I think it's kind of cool that we go there just by breathing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, because it's like almost, because I first went through meditation, but then also, sexual energy was very much a portal for me. But then once you've actually been there, it's like the door is open, the portal's open, and then you can just snap, like, it's just, you remember that it's always available and accessible. And my journeys have often, I've had many where it's like descending in center of the earth as a space. Yeah, descending into the center of the earth, and then a portal or like a skylight opens up through the surface, and then I have this kind of like triple view of myself in space on the surface of the earth, and then also within the center of the earth, and doing this kind of like planetary grid work and bridging of frequencies, cosmic frequencies, letting them come through that, just like connecting the self and the stars, the self on the surface and the self in the center, and then just bridging energies that way. And so it's really been that's why even like masturbation doesn't even really describe it for me. It's more like I don't even have words to describe it, because at least a lot of last year, a lot of my work, a lot of my like soul missions were through that. Like it was doing these multi-dimensional energetic journeys and missions and work through that realm. Just like through I don't even know, it's not even orgasm, it's like
it's that's why it's all energy. Eventually it's all energy. You can't even say that it's I have a little piece I'd like to read, and maybe we can conclude with this.
That feels perfect.
Does that feel good to you?
Yeah, it does.
This is, let's see. I made it big so I didn't have to use my reading glasses. So this is by Joseph Campbell, who wrote The Hero's Journey. He's the Hero's Journey journey guy. You probably know this one, but I love it because it kind of captures it for me. People say they were searching for the meaning of life. I don't think that's it at all. I think that what we're seeking is an experience of being alive, so that our life experiences on the purely physical plane, the body, will have resonances within our own innermost being and reality, the starlight, so that we actually feel the rapture of being alive. The rapture of being alive, that's our birthright, that's what it means to be human.
Beautiful. Oh, thank you so much, Leah. It's been so fun.
That was great. Thank you.
So fun. Spiraling and journeying through the stars and through sex and all the fun places.
It was fun. Thank you, Pei-Ling. So great.
You. And thank you, everyone, watching and listening and joining us. And to all of our beautiful divine beings, beings of light that have been very present in this space with us, too.
Cool. Thank you.